Dr. Don Levy, the director of the Siena College Research Institute, giving us some of his time in a very busy time for the college and for the polling firm. Don, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure to be with you.
For our audience who might not know, Siena College, one of the nation's preeminent pollsters, you guys are kind of the gold standard. And so when your poll with the New York Times came out on Friday, that's one that everyone kind of in the political world make sure to read that poll very closely. So, final national poll that Siena College released on Friday before Election Day. What did that poll find?
Well, it can't get any closer. Our numbers right now are 48% for former President Donald Trump, 48% for Vice President Kamala Harris, still about 4% who say that they are undecided. They can't simply make up their mind. Another about 6% say that they might switch. So there are still about 1 in 10 voters who remain in play. Interesting, as close as the race is overall nationally, and as close as it is in all the battleground states, and of course, Nevada being one of those battleground states, when you look under the hood, you see tremendous difference within various subgroups. So, for example, just the simplest one, the gender divide. A majority of men say that they are for Donald Trump. A majority of women say they are for Kamala Harris. Some of those people, live in the same house. Another group of voters that are very important, white voters without a college education. There, Donald Trump has a 30 to 35 point advantage. And those voters come into play certainly in all the battleground states. Voters of color, certainly black voters, a lot has been made of that constituency. Initially during the campaign, there was concern on the Democratic side and some optimism on the Republican side that some of those voters were moving towards Donald Trump. They seem in our most recent poll to have returned to the Democratic fold. And so right now, Harris has a very large lead, 81% to 12% amongst black voters. And of course, Latino voters. As we all well know, Latinos are not a monolithic group. They vary by any number of different characteristics, generations here in the country, so on and so forth. But Latinos, certainly we have seen in this cycle a greater tendency amongst Latino voters to embrace the Trump ticket. So what had been a large lead for the Democrats has now shrunk to about a 15-point advantage amongst that group. So what we're seeing is that at this point in the race, overall, we're looking at a tied race, but it really is going to depend on which of these subgroups, many of these subgroups who favor one candidate over the other by large double-digit margins, which of them are going to turn out at rates greater than or perhaps less than the rate that they have turned out in previous years, or the rate at which either the campaigns or we as pollsters anticipate that they're going to turn out.
Interesting, and it'll also come down to more specifically the polls in the 7 battleground states, which we are expecting more from Siena College and others soon. What was the change kind of, you guys did a recent poll early October. Harris was up by 3 points on the former president in that poll. Should we take that to mean that she has slipped a little bit since then, or is that within the margin of the error and kind of a shift that we might expect that we shouldn't look too much into?
Well, certainly what we have seen in many of our polls over the course of October is that former President Donald Trump has closed the gap a little bit nationally, and in some cases has moved it to each and every one of the battleground states is now a toss-up. Right now, the polling average in Nevada is that we have Trump up by less than 1 point. That's when you take a look at all the recent polling. Senator Rosen up by more, close to 5 points over the challenger for the race there, Brown. But at this point in time, we have seen the race move ever so slightly in Trump's direction. But really, right now, one of the two candidates could win all 7 of the battleground states or lose all 7 of the battleground states.
Wow.
There is no clear advantage for one candidate over the other. The only state that we're tracking that Donald Trump seems to have a lead that borders with being outside the margin of error is your neighbor, Arizona, where we've consistently had Trump up by 4 to 5 points over Harris. The rest, toss-up.
Wow. Okay. I'll take you back to 2016 a little bit when, as we all know, there was a large polling error, not just Siena College. Every pollster essentially missed that race. We all thought Hillary Clinton was going to win that race, and there was many factors that contributed to that, but one of them being this non-response bias where Trump voters, right, were more likely to not respond to a poll. I don't want to get too scientific for our audience here, but explain briefly how pollsters like Siena College are kind of adjusting for that, expecting that a little bit, and what you do to kind of adjust so the polls can reflect that to some extent.
Sure, to give a little bit of context, most especially in 2020, we found that in areas that Donald Trump carried by the largest margins, it was voters who backed him who tended to say, I don't really want to talk to a pollster. Perhaps, that owes in part to Donald Trump's tendency to call all aspects of the media, whether it's what you do or what I do, as fake news. But there was a tendency for that voter to not respond. So fast forward to today, and coincidentally, I'll point out that in 2022, when Donald Trump was not on the ballot, our polling rate of predictive efficiency was off the charts. We got virtually every single race right. So what are we doing right now? A couple of things that we're doing is we are a phone shop. We're calling people back more times in order to ask them for their opinions. So we take a smaller sample to start with, and we call each respondent more times with the belief that the more times I call you, sooner or later, even if you are a non-responder, I'm going to get you to participate. Also, in 2020, if someone yelled at us, we got on the phone, hi, this is Don, asking you a short survey, and they simply yelled at us, Trump, and hung up. They didn't count. We didn't know what to do with them. We kept track of them. We didn't count them in our estimates. Now we do count them. In fact, we went back in 2020, and had we counted all those folks who just simply yelled a choice at us and hung up, it would have moved our polling about a point to a point and a half
Wow.
in the direction of Donald Trump, and would have eliminated a fair amount of the error that we as a shop had in our polling. And then finally, we quota. So when we call Nevada, we divide the state into multiple regions. We divide each region into people by virtue of their race, ethnicity, their age, their educational level, and we seek to fill those small but really important quotas of people. So we're a little bit more rigorous. We take more time, we call people back more, and we count those people who yell at us, all with an effort to get as representative a sample, whether it be of folks from Nevada or of any of the other battleground states here in this pivotal election in 2024.
So if Don or Siena College is calling, pick up the phone, answer a couple questions. It'll make all those polls a little more accurate. One last one before we let you go, Don. What can the polls tell us a week out from Election Day, and what can polls not tell us a week out from Election Day, because it's just the limitations of this industry?
Well, sure. I mean, we have been accused at various points of influencing the outcome of election. If we poll a race and we say one candidate is 10 points over the other, then we'll get criticism that the supporters of the candidate trailing, they give up, they don't show. Well, that's certainly not the case in this election. I think what we're showing, whether it be the New York Times Siena poll or other reputable pollsters, is that this one is too close to call. Your vote matters. And as residents of a battleground state, your vote really matters. We also show people that Americans are not all the same. We tend to, as people, believe that other people ought to believe and behave the way we do and the way our friends and family do. What polling does is show that there is tremendous variation across the state, across America. So we draw a picture of that and we give it back to you. We also feel as though, as we poll not just the horse race, who's going to win, but the issues, we're asking you to think about those issues, whether that be the economy, preservation of our democracy, immigration, abortion, and we demonstrate how various Americans have differing opinions on those issues. And we ask you to think through that, to decide for yourself, and in this case, to vote based on not just the personality of the candidates, not even just their character, but whether they stand on the issues where you stand in this representative democracy. So we feel as though we contribute to that representative democracy that I think we all cherish.
We do appreciate the hard work of Siena College and you, the director there, Don. Thank you so much for giving us some time today. Keep the faith here in this final week, and best of luck. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you very much.